When it comes to our gut, we have 40 plus trillion bacteria that live inside of us. And it's up to us, really, whether that bacteria is going to help us or it's going to harm us. And that's all determined by what we eat.
Welcome to a new series of Thriving in Menopause, brought to you by Prevention Magazine. I'm Zoe Mernier, and I'm excited to be back discussing the ways we can navigate the menopausal years of our lives to be sure that we're thriving rather than just surviving. Today, we're joined by Bridget Foliaki-Davis, a Sydney-based Kiwi-born, award-winning chef, qualified nutritionist, and author of 6 cookbooks, who has even cooked on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Bridget will be talking us through why gut health is crucial to helping us manage perimenopause and menopause. Bridget, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, Zoe.
Now, let's start by having you tell us about your own significant health challenges, including obesity, and how they led you on a journey of discovery.
So about 6.5 years ago, I decided enough was enough. I was about 35 kilos heavier than I currently am. I had pre-diabetes, fatty liver disease, chronically fatigued all the time, and depressed. So sad. So when I decided enough was enough, I kept on coming back. As someone who loves research, loves science, I kept on coming back to this notion of gut health and how having a healthy gut can really be so beneficial for your entire well-being.
Well, let's talk about what the catalyst was for kind of changing your whole life.
Well, I was in the middle of writing my first cookbook. And I was told that I'll be going on to television on Breakfast Show and to give a little bit of a segment, do a bit of a cooking class. And I thought, oh my goodness.
That's a strong motivator.
Absolutely. So, it was a little bit self-centered to begin with, but I had no idea what to do. I had absolutely no idea. I started looking online and all the information that I was getting was quite conflicting. Like there was so much information out there. But being someone who loves science, being someone who loves to know the whys and not just the hows, everything I was looking at kind of led me down this path to gut health. So the first thing I did was I decided, well, you know what? I'm just going to make the next meal I eat, I'm just going to make it healthy. And I'm going to cut out the things or the ingredients that are causing, my gut to not be healthy. I've done that research. I knew that sugar wasn't a great idea.
Damn it.
Yes. So I cut out sugar, and I also started cutting out things like highly refined carbohydrates. So things like starches and wheat and things along those lines. And it literally started with one healthy meal.
Right. So how would you describe how your gut was before you embarked on this?
Pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
I imagine, now that I know a lot more about how my gut actually works, but my gut was, it was bloated all the time. It was in pain. I either had constipation or diarrhea, depending on whether it was a Monday or a Thursday, And I realized that this pain was being caused by the foods and the beverages I was regularly consuming. And so it was a matter of me kind of understanding that it was food that was causing my distress, as opposed to thinking that I had no control. Yeah.
So talk me through what the process was, or what the progress was as you started. You said you took it one meal at a time, and then obviously you did another meal and another meal, and then how soon were the results that you noticed?
Well, that one healthy meal, firstly I realized that I didn't die because, I was like, diet food tastes like cardboard.
Yeah.
And then I ate it, put my chef's hat on and went, that was actually quite delicious. So I just made another one, and I didn't really think too far ahead. So I was in the process, I was saying, of writing my first book and kind of taking photographs for the book, and it was all a very busy time. And without even realizing it, within a week, I had dropped nearly 6 kilos.
Within a week?
Within a week. And I know a lot of that was inflammation because I was holding on to so much inflammation. And so I dropped 6 kilos in a week, and then it slowed down as it does.
Yeah.
But by the end, I'm going close to 26, 27 days, and I weighed myself again, and I had lost a whopping 11 kilos of obviously inflammation, and fat because my clothes were like falling off me. So by the time I actually got to do my little segment on breakfast TV, I didn't have time to go shopping. So I was still wearing my big clothes, but I knew. And that's really what really mattered for me. But it was more so not just the weight loss. It was how I was feeling. I had energy. I was smiling more. I felt that I had some sort of control, whereas prior to that, I felt quite helpless and hopeless in my journey.
So talk us through exactly what you were and weren't eating.
Well, I had stopped, as I said, refined carbohydrates. Yeah. So I went from a fairly processed approach. So I would say 60 to maybe even 80% of my diet had been out of boxes and jars and tins, and I was allowing someone else to do the cooking for me.
Yeah.
And even as a chef, it's quite a common thing. We open a packet and then we finish it off. Whereas I took that big step back and I started with whole foods. So I had a whole foods approach to it for the first time ever. For the first time in, nearly 50 years, I was in charge. I was doing all the cooking. So I took this whole foods approach and got rid of things that pretty much had a barcode.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but the main one was, I got rid of the sugar in all forms. So whether it be maple syrup or something that has that kind of sugary response in my body, because I realized I was constantly on that sugar roller coaster. So I got rid of the sugar, got rid of the starches, got rid of the highly refined foods, no ultra-processed foods, and that approach has stuck.
Yeah.
Yet 6.5 years later, it's still the same approach.
Amazing. So let's talk about linking this with perimenopause and menopause specifically. Why is this sort of focus on gut health so important during this time?
So we know that when we start to go through that next phase of life, right, we go, especially going into perimenopause, and I'm still perimenopausal, is that one of the things we experience is a dysregulation in our hormones. So our estrogen starts to drop. And with that estrogen drop, now what we now know is that we become less insulin sensitive. So that estrogen is directly linked to our ability to be able to regulate glucose better. So, rather than when it comes to our gut health, relying on what we had been doing, prior to becoming menopausal, we realize we have to actually make some changes. So, that next phase requires a different look. What do they say? Old keys don't open new doors. And we are moving into that next phase. So when it comes to gut health, with that drop in our body's ability to handle insulin, our body's ability to regulate our blood glucose. The other thing that massively happens is that within our gut, we have, there's inflammatory pathways, and estrogen is an anti-inflammatory hormone.
Right.
So we've got this glucose going crazy, we've got insulin out of control or less regulated than normal, and then we've got less estrogen, which is an anti-inflammatory hormone. Yeah.
Okay. So how does changing what we eat and what's in our gut help benefit this?
So our gut health is the source of pretty much our overall health. And when it comes to our gut, we have, 40 plus trillion bacteria that live inside of us. And it's up to us, really, whether that bacteria is going to help us or it's going to harm us. And that's all determined by what we eat. So if we're eating a pro-inflammatory diet, so we're eating a lot of processed foods, we're eating a lot of sugar and starches, and maybe we're drinking alcohol, and we're consuming products that are going to create an inflammatory condition within our body, that's going to show up in our gut as well, because we're going to have bacteria in there who's going to be creating a bit of chaos as opposed to creating that harmony, which is what we want.
So what are the key foods that women can turn to help make this menopause transition easier?
Look, I would firstly say it's not just what we can turn to, but what we need to be more considerate of. Yeah. So it's those ultra-processed foods or even processed foods. We need to limit the processed foods and include more whole foods. But specifically, if you really want to look after your gut health, you're going for the lovely probiotic foods, like all of our wonderful fibrous plant foods. So, getting a real diverse range of plants into your every meal. Like, would you believe I start my day, every single day I start it with a big bowl of some type of vegetable. And people, I know, right?
What?
I know, right? In fact, and this is all part of me really supporting the bacteria that live inside of me, I even start my day with kimchi, which is a fermented food, really good for your gut health. So things like kimchi, miso, sauerkraut, all different types of, sugar-free pickles are really good, but also making sure that you're doubling down with your anti-inflammatory foods. So things that are really high in omega-3 fatty acids like salmon and mackerel and all those wonderful oily fishes, and even chia seeds, flax seeds, things like that as well.
But how do you want to eat kimchi when you first wake up in the morning?
That's a really good question. And I have to tell you, it did take me a while to get there. So what we know, right, in our gut at any one time, you have over 40 trillion bacteria living just inside your large intestine. And those 40 trillion bacteria, we need to feed them.
Yeah.
So we're feeding them prebiotics. So kimchi is not only a probiotic, it's also a prebiotic. So it's known as a symbiotic. So in my mind, I'm like, kimchi's really good for me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but some days and for breakfast, it can taste and smell a bit funky. So it took me a while and I don't just sit there and eat it on its own.
Yeah, right.
I'll take a couple of tablespoons. I'll mix it with a really nice coconut yogurt. I will put it through scrambled eggs, which are amazing as well with kimchi. So I will start to not just kind of go out there and just, want to eat half a jar of kimchi, but mix it through something. And in 2 tablespoons of kimchi, you're looking at over 1 trillion probiotics.
Amazing.
Sauerkraut as well. So if kimchi is a bridge too far because of the spice, you can lean towards more of a sauerkraut. Just make sure when you are purchasing a sauerkraut, it comes from the refrigerated section of your supermarket to make sure that those organisms are still alive. So stay away from the shelf ones and go for the refrigerated ones. Or make your own. It's really easy to make.
We'll be right back after this.
Perimenopause can actually start in your 40s. Declining estrogen production during perimenopause brings on changes to menstrual cycles and often the onset of hot flushes, night sweats, mood swings, and sexual problems. Premensal Peri is specifically designed for perimenopausal women and can help relieve these common menopausal symptoms. Premensal Peri is available at leading pharmacies across Australia and offers a cost-effective treatment at under $1 a day. When things start to change, try Premensal Peri. Always read the label and follow the directions for use.
Okay, we're back.
So if someone is coming from sort of a pretty heavily processed diet, I think perhaps launching straight into all of these measures could be quite upsetting for their gut, do you think? Or is it something that is best to kind of ease into a bit gently?
Great question. I think the one that I would be most, mindful of would be the fibre increase, because with the fibre increase, you've also got to increase your water as well. Otherwise, you don't want to get blocked up in there.
No.
So when it comes to this type of approach, like rather than going out there and, like I said, eating half a jar of kimchi for breakfast, you might want to build into it. But this is how I look at it. So every time I sit in front of my plate of food, or I sit in front of whatever meal it is, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, I start with the plants. I eat the vegetables first. I eat the fibre first. There's always some good protein, whether it be animal-based protein or a plant-based protein as well, and then a bit of healthy fats. Like if we were to look at that, what I've just said, we're talking about maybe some avocado, tomato, and mushrooms on your plate. And then there's some scrambled eggs or a poached egg. And then there's some nuts and seeds. So if you kind of look at what we eat anyway, it's about tweaking our current version. But I think the main thing is that it starts from whole foods.
So what is your thought then on carbohydrates in general? So we know that obviously processed carbs, not a good thing. Where would we find help apart from in plant sources? Are we saying no to breads?
So my take is that 85% of the time I say no.
Right.
I try to say no to processed or ultra-processed carbohydrates that are highly refined. I try and say no to that 95% of the time. I make all my own bread. I'm making it from wheat-free sources.
Right.
So it's nuts and it's seed flours and it's all sorts of gorgeous things like that. There's lots of flax seeds in there. So because I make my own breads, I have this philosophy, and I think it's an approach that helps me to stay in the best shape, in the best way that I've ever been in my entire life. In my perimenopausal stage, I'm in the best shape of my entire life with the most energy. And that's because I have this approach that, if I want it, I have to cook it.
Right, okay.
But at the same time, if someone put the most gorgeous piece of sourdough in front of me, I'm not going to say no.
Right.
I'm going to absolutely enjoy that sourdough, but would I have it every single day? No.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess what would be your advice to people who aren't chefs? Obviously it's easy for you to say I will cook it because you know exactly how to go about it. But is it easy enough for the non-talented cooks among us to create these healthy foods day in, day out?
So I have an audience, or I suppose a legion of people who follow the recipes that I do.
Yeah.
And, we're just an ordinary bunch of people, and we're quite a large bunch of people now. So the recipes that I create are designed for the home cook. They're not designed for chefs at all.
Yeah.
Because I don't have time, quite frankly. I'm a mum. I run a business. I work 7 days a week. So everything that I do, I have designed recipes that are quick and easy and manageable, and you can pick up most of the ingredients in your supermarket. And those are the recipes that I teach people to cook. It is a cooking approach, because the magic happens in our kitchen, not in a factory, not in a science lab. The actual magic when it comes to looking after our bodies throughout whatever phase of life we're going through, but even more so throughout the menopausal phases, is that we have to be in control. And how do we do that? We become the ones that invest that bit of time in our kitchens to, like I've got bread recipes that'll take you 2 minutes to mix it together and 10, 15 minutes to cook in the air fryer.
Wow. Okay.
Exactly. And so while the bread's cooking, you're poaching an egg or whatever it might be, right?
Amazing.
We do a lot of bulk cooking as well. So we'll do some prep on the weekends so that during the week we've got breakfast already done.
Yeah. So let's talk about what the upshot of all the changes that you did.
So within 5.5 months, I'd lost a total of 35 kilos. And that was at the time with no exercise. Now I exercise now. I look after my body.
Yeah.
I understand the need to make sure my bones are good and my muscles are strong and I'm flexible. But at the time, it was more of that I was really busy. So I lost a total of 35 kilos. I went from a size 20 to 22. I'm now a 6 to an 8. And I've maintained that for the last 6 years. In fact, I turned 50 at the end of the year. And I often get mistaken for our 30-year-old daughter. Like I'm aging in reverse.
Yeah. Amazing.
And like I said, I've never had more energy. I've never had better sleep. Oh, I sleep so well now. My goodness, I sleep so well. I smile more. I'm just happier. And those gut issues that I was suffering with that I had actually just normalized. I had normalized the feelings that I was having, like, I'm going through middle age, so I'm going to put on weight around my belly because that's just what happens. The best years are behind me and all that sort of stuff that society kind of tells us.
Yeah.
I realized we're able to take control and it feels really good. It's liberating.
Now, I'm interested also in sort of taking control of your gut health. Does it have an effect on those other menopause symptoms like brain fog and even hot flushes? Were you experiencing that before? Or
all of the above.
Yeah.
Oh, it was terrible. And I remember having a chat to my mum about it and said, oh my gosh, these perimenopause symptoms are awful. And she goes, oh, my period just stopped one day and I was good to go. And I was like, I was like, thanks for not passing down that gene, Mum. No, I was a mess. And I think a lot of my depression and definitely my exhaustion came from the fact that I was not sleeping.
Yeah.
I was waking up and I just remember thinking I didn't know sweat could drip down the back of my thighs while I'm sleeping. Like, that's a new experience,
Yeah.
So I was experiencing really bad night sweats, hot, flushes during the day, brain fog. Oh, my goodness. I was a cuckoo clock. Like, I literally couldn't focus. My attention was just running rampant and moody. I think was the worst thing.
Yeah.
You know, I had started locking myself away in my bedroom, away from the kids, away from my husband, like literally locking the door, getting changed with the lights off. I was miserable.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed, like changing my diet changed my life in every single way possible, including the fact that no more, waking up feeling like I've just gone for a swim in the middle of the night. In fact, I don't wake up in the middle of the night. If I do, I'm straight back to sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the things that I know that really helped is when it comes to this body temperature regulation is increasing my fluid intake. So from someone who probably drank more wine than she drank water, I'll now drink a good 3 to 4 litres a day, easy.
Right.
Yeah, I do find that with a lot of the people that a lot of the clients that I have and people that I teach is that water consumption is a lot less than what people they realize they actually need.
Right.
Yeah, they drink a lot less. Like normally I'm like, double it.
Yeah.
And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, double it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've actually got a formula. Would you like to hear the formula?
Yes,
so everybody's different when it comes to water consumption. And we've all heard that, you need to drink 8 cups a day, which is that's been debunked.
Yeah.
Everyone's different because everyone's different size, but we do know that every single cell in your body needs water. So the more cells you currently have, the more water you need. So what you do is you take your current weight, you times it by 30 mils. Let's say, for example, someone's weighing, let's make it easy for my brain, 100 kilos, right?
Nice round thing.
Yeah. We'll just go with 100 kilos. So if someone's weighing 100 kilos, they need to times by 30. That gives 3,000 or 3 litres. Now, that is the absolute minimum amount of water you should be drinking a day. Anything less than that, and you're severely dehydrated. So we're talking about that inability to regulate body temperature. We're talking about severe dehydration that could lead to brain fog and, not being able to produce enough energy, not being able to, have proper or effective bowel movements as well because we're constipated. So that's the absolute minimum for a person who weighs 100 kilos. But I've got a top line figure for you. This is what I tell all my clients is that you take that current weight and you times it by 35. So that will take us up to 3.5 litres. That's actually what you want to aim for. So if you're doing 3.5 a day, and that's just a normal day, if you're obviously exercising, increase the water. If it's a hot day, increase the water. That's just your bottom, your baseline. But 3.5, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. So definitely, I would say a lot more than most people are.
Would really, absolutely, yeah. And once you get into that habit, it just, I call my water bottle my support water bottle because it goes everywhere I go. I can see yours, Zoe.
Yeah, there it is. So let's talk about wine because, you said you did have you were drinking quite a lot of wine when you were in your unhealthy phase.
Yes.
Do you abstain now or do you feel you don't need it as much?
Yeah.
What's your advice for women that might feel like they'll currently be enjoying that wine the day?
So I was a very heavy drinker. I was an alcoholic. Right. I'm just going to be completely laid on the table.
Yeah.
And I would use alcohol obviously to self-medicate. Because I was really, really sad, and the alcohol would make me feel even sadder. Yeah, so it was a vicious cycle. And when I started to get healthy, I reduced down the alcohol that I was drinking because I just didn't feel as sad anymore. The other thing about looking after our gut is the majority of the hormone serotonin, which is responsible just for making us feel good. It's our feel-good hormone. Yeah. It lives in our gut. It lives in our gut. So when we've got a gut that's unhealthy, we don't have access to the serotonin. So as I got healthier, the gut started to, allow that wonderful serotonin just to make me feel better. So I realized that I was less reliant on alcohol for that self-medicating factor. About 6 months ago, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to, not drink for, I think it was like January, dry January or whatever. I'll just give it a go. And I haven't had a drink since. Wow. I haven't intentionally gone out and say I'm a non-drinker. But if someone put a gorgeous glass of champagne in front of me, I would not say no. I would be like, got to respect the champagne. But I did notice that once I really began to support my gut, really began to support the fact that I could now sleep better. So I wasn't feeling as exhausted. Yeah. My relationship with alcohol really changed. And I guess this is the natural progression that I've just kind of gone in.
Yeah.
And I'm just sort of seeing how long it's going to go for. I'm really fascinated.
Why not?
Yeah, I don't miss it, which is, I think, the main thing.
Well, Bridget, thank you so much for joining us. That was really helpful, and I'm sure our readers will take away much from that. And not eating takeaway would be one of them.
Just not every day.
Yes. And thanks, listeners, for joining us as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please click the button and subscribe. And for more great tips about living your best life at midlife, make sure you pick up a copy of Prevention Magazine. I'm Zoe Mernier, and I'll see you next time.